And so ends Act 2 of the 3-act version of Sacco and Vanzetti as presented at the White Barn Theater in August 2001.
In the 2-act version, we plan for the New York premiere. We'll go right on at this point into Act 3, but first, let's meet some of the women who are playing major roles in our cast now. We've already met Perri Sussman.
Hi, Ben.
Yes, and we know Perri thanks to you, Ben. She was, as I recall, one of your Cherubinos in Bronx Opera's Marriage of Figaro. So playing a trouser role like Medeiros should be easy for her. And I remember when you recommended her for the role of the princess in Dargamishki's Rusalka, which we presented in its English language premiere at Queen's College with Helene in the title role. And I hesitated only because the princess isn't supposed to be as beautiful as the mermaid. And you told me, Ben, if you don't take her, you're crazy. And as I told Perri later, of course, you were right. And we did take her. And in the case of Rosa Sacco, Rosa was for good reason called the most beautiful Italian girl in Massachusetts. I don't think Perri will have trouble with that either.
Thanks, Leonard. And I also want to say I really appreciated the roles you wrote for me in Triangle Fire and The Love Letter from Rosa Luxemburg. I guess fine.
Well, Perri has also premiered works of mine and Joel Mandelbaum's, and will be singing my Federico Garcia Lorca's setting, Dawn in New York, among other things, at Cedar Mere in a concert with Dance Visions New York next May.
And I'll be on that concert too, singing with Perri and 3 other women who are with us today in Zalafahad's Daughters and the Emma Goldman piece, If I Can't Dance, It's Not My Revolution.
One of those women is the young mezzo, Jackie Bakewell. Jackie, can you put your video? There you are. Okay. When I introduced Chris Remkus and Brendan Rourke 2 nights ago, I mentioned that we had 3 former Hofstra students and faculty member Gregory Mercer in the cast. Jackie is the 3rd one, auditioning her for the role of Rusalichka, the Little Mermaid in Rusalka in 2015 was one of the most fun moments that Helene and I ever had in the theater.
Jackie, do you remember what you said when you learned that Ben Spierman is my son?
Yes, you're Ben's mom, and you're gonna be my mom.
And that is something that we'll never forget.
I'll never forget how you wrote a role just for me in the Triangle Fire, and also had me sing tonight from West Side Story with my boyfriend Brendan Rourke, who is also in this film.
That's right. We hope to have you sing a duet in this piece too, but as it turned out, we need you to play a number of different roles for us: the court clerk, the witness, and the president of MIT.
And now let's welcome another mezzo in the new cast, playing the major role of Sacco's teacher and mentor, the Dowager Mrs. Elizabeth she's playing the Dowager Mrs. Elizabeth Glendower Evans, and she'll also be singing with us in Cedar Mere next May. And anyhow, she is the wonderful Sarah Blaze.
Hello!
Hello! Sarah, it's always great to have you with us. You just light up the place, and the role that we have cast you in is a true ray of light in all the darkness. She is really the role that becomes the audience's conscience. I'm going to ask you to read the last words that she sings in the opera.
Or state. I have even heard some good people say that if there hadn't been such an uproar, if it hadn't been such a world issue, they might have stayed. Can you imagine anything so awful, so immoral? What was one to do? Sit back?
But that's essentially what we're going to do now. We're going to sit back and watch Act 3 after a summary of the action by Dr. Lehrman.
Well, I'm going to share this with Ben. Would everybody else except me and Ben mute? I think we're hearing some noise, and I think we won't if we do it this way. So, Ben, you're on.
Scene 1, we see appeals lawyer William Thompson complain of the secrecy surrounding the case.
That's actually an aria that'll be cut in the 2-act version, but we're going to see it tonight. I think it's rather important, actually. And scene 2, Vanzetti bemoans the loss of his cherished books in prison, and he ends the scene by calling for revenge, which, as we heard the other night, actually did happen in 1932. Some of his associates burned down the house of Judge Thayer, and wounded his wife and housekeeper. They didn't kill Thayer, though. He died a year later on the toilet.
That's very Jurassic Park-ish, dying on the toilet, if you think about it for a moment. In scene 3, the judge, who we've just been talking about, sentences the defendants to death.
In scene 4, they are interviewed in prison by journalist Philip Stong, who later wrote the book that became the musical State Fair. Vanzetti makes his famous statement that begins, "If it had not been for these things."
In scene 5, Governor Fuller interviews Celestino Medeiros, but is unpersuaded, swayed by his committee, Judge Robert Grant, and the presidents of Harvard and MIT, to allow the executions to proceed. Mary Donovan speaks at a rally at Boston Common, is stopped by the police, and loses her government job.
In scene 6, Thompson asks Vanzetti to forgive his persecutors. Vanzetti says he'll think about it. A jingoistic chorus of bigots shouts, "Let him fry." Vanzetti says he will forgive some people for what they do. The moral is drawn by New York Times editor F. Lauriston Bullard, and then 50 years later, Governor Michael Dukakis issues his exoneration speech, which will be translated into Italian and engraved on an 8-foot-high stone over Sacco's grave in his native Torre Maggiore, Italy, as Celine and I discovered when we visited and gave a concert there on August 7th, 2000. The chorus sings, as it sang at the very beginning, "This is the end of the opera. After this, it begins."
And now, here is the third and final act of the Blitzstein-Lehrman opera Sacco and Vanzetti.